Hi everybody, I'm Bennett Payne, the creator of Magneterra, and today I'm going to show you how to play the game. Let's first discuss an overview of a player's turn. On their turn, a player can take 4 actions. They can move or meditate, search or attack, buy a spell, and cast a spell. These actions can be taken in any order except in the border zone, when you must first always take your movement action. The border zone, which runs along the board's perimeter, contains the alphabet, numbers, and respawn altars. At the start of the game, players roll 3 game dice and the alchemy die, which is always rolled during a movement action. Players begin anywhere in the forest section of the border zone at the top of the board, closest to the tallest pillar. They move their figurine the number of pips shown on the 3 dice, sliding it without lifting. Lifting grants an unfair height advantage and may result in illegal token magnet captures. If a player rolls their alchemy symbol, as shown on their board, they draw 2 search cards. If they roll an opponent symbol, that opponent draws 1 search card. If the hourglass symbol is rolled on the alchemy die, there is no extra action. Any search card drawn can be held until the player's turn, or played immediately if it has a lightning bolt symbol. Here are a few important things to keep in mind when moving. Regarding treasure tokens, at the start of the game, 6 treasure tokens are placed on the board. The first player to reach a treasure collects it and can either use its effect immediately or save it for later. If the treasure reveals a token magnet, you add a magnet to your figurine from the surplus pile and your turn immediately ends, which is always the case when capturing a token magnet. If the treasure reveals a monster, it attacks you at the end of your movement action. There are a few things that restrict movement. First, you can't move through pillars, walls, monsters, or other players, as these structures block your path. Second, anytime a monster or shadow warrior is in the space adjacent to your figurine, you can only roll 2 game dice instead of 3 when taking a movement action. If you first defeat the monster or shadow warrior, you can again roll 3 game dice on your movement action. Third, if you gain a token magnet from a pillar, the search deck, or a treasure, your turn immediately ends and you collect 15 experience. That's everything you need to know about movement. Now let's move on to meditation. A player may choose to meditate instead of taking a movement action if they are injured. To meditate, roll 1 game die and heal that number of health points equal to the number of pips shown, up to your maximum health. A player can also choose to search or attack, but not both unless you have the stamina card. Searching is simple. Just draw a card from the search deck. If it has a lightning bolt, you play it right away. Otherwise, you can hold on to it and use it later. You can play as many search cards as you want during your turn. There are 3 types of lightning bolt cards. XP cards, these give you XP instantly. Obstruction cards, and monster cards. When you draw one of these, the player to your right places a wall or a monster next to your figurine. If it's a monster, it attacks you immediately, and the player to your right rolls for the monster attack. Now let's talk about the search cards with alchemy symbols. Alchemy symbols can be collected to obtain your special ability or steal your opponent's special ability. To unlock your special ability, you simply collect a card with your alchemy symbol plus find 1 extra alchemy symbol. If you want to steal an opponent's ability, you'll need 2 cards with their alchemy symbol plus 1 extra alchemy symbol. Finally, there are skill cards with upgrade arrows used to improve your character's stats. To upgrade a stat, you need 2 skill cards. One of them has to match the stat you want to improve. You can also use skill cards to earn a token magnet. That's how searching works. Now let's move on to attacking. If there's a rival or monster within spellcasting distance, you can choose to attack, either melee or ranged. To attack, roll the number of game dice shown on your player board, starting with 3 at the beginning of the game. If your target is adjacent, it's a melee attack and you need to roll swords. If your target is within spellcasting range, which is 6 spaces for a novice mage warrior, and yes, diagonals count, then it's a ranged attack and you must roll energy blasts. The defender then rolls dice based on their defense strength, aiming for shields. Compare the number of hits to shields. Each unmatched hit reduces the defender's health. If you defeat a monster, you get a bonus attack to use anytime that turn. You also earn XP, 15 XP for an Anklia cat, 30 XP for a Thean, 30 XP for defeating another player. Players start the game with 3 health units and can increase their max health to 6 over time. If your health drops to 0, you become exhausted and take the following steps. If a player defeats you, then you lose half your Tokon Magnets rounded down to your opponent. If a monster defeats you, then you lose 1 Tokon Magnet, which is placed on the monster card. You must make a desperate escape, teleporting to one of the 2 respawn altars in your quadrant. If you had any active spells, they're cancelled. You'll need to recast them on a later turn. On your next turn, you return to full health and re-enter the game. Okay, let's talk spells. Once per turn, you can acquire a spell card from the 5-card draw pile by spending the required XP. You can cast it immediately or save it for later. Just place one of your player cubes on the card until you use it. During your turn, you can also cast a spell. If you cast a spell on yourself, simply spend the XP and the effect happens right away. If you cast a spell on an opponent, you must be within spellcasting range, which is 6 spaces as a novice or 8 spaces if you've upgraded to a Master Mage Warrior. If you're in range, spend the required XP to cast the spell. Your opponent gets 1 chance to block an XP spell attack. To do this, they roll the alchemy die. If they roll their alchemy symbol, the spell fails and you still lose the XP. Some spells last for multiple turns. When you cast one, place the indicated number of purple magic cubes on the spell card and on your player board if the spell gives you a temporary skill boost. During your movement actions, if you roll an hourglass on the alchemy die, remove 1 cube from your spell card. When the last cube is removed, the spell ends and the magic cube on your board is also removed. You can't recast that spell until a future turn. And that's how spells work in Magneterra. Now let's move on to the dig action. Sometimes you might find yourself trapped by walls or in a spot where removing a wall is the best strategic move. That's when you can use the dig action. Digging lets you remove 1 adjacent wall unit from the board. But there's a catch. If you choose to dig, it must be the only action you take that entire turn. Simple as that. Now let's move on to upgrading to a Master Mage Warrior. One of the exciting parts of Magneterra is that you can upgrade your character from a novice to a Master Mage Warrior, but you'll need 2 Tokon Magnets first. To upgrade, use a movement action to enter the forest area of the border zone, anywhere except for the respawn altars. Then swap your novice figurine for your master figurine and move your magnets to your upgraded figurine. When you upgrade, you also regain full health and gain 5 skill cubes you can place on your player board. Place 1 on range +2, place 1 on move 3D +1. The remaining 3 cubes can be assigned however you like to health, attack, defense, or wall spells. If you prefer, you can exchange one of the 3 remaining cubes for 50 XP. Once you step into the border zone to upgrade, your turn immediately ends. No more actions this turn. Now let's talk about monsters, because there's a little danger in everything you do. During your movement action, if you roll 2 skulls, an Ankleocat appears, and if you roll 3 skulls, a Thean appears. The player to your right places the Ankleocat or Thean anywhere adjacent to you after your movement action is complete, and it attacks immediately. If you roll 1 skull, there is no effect. From the search deck, if you draw a Thean or Ankleocat, the player to your right places the monster anywhere adjacent to you, and it attacks immediately. Let's talk about how monsters move in Magneterra. Monsters always move towards the closest player using the shortest orthogonal path, no diagonal movement. There are some exceptions. If the closest player is using an invisibility cloak or is in the border zone, the monster targets the next closest player instead. If no players are available because everyone is wounded and at a respawn altar, or is upgrading to a Master Mage Warrior, the monster moves towards the tallest pillar. If a monster is exactly between 2 players, both roll 3 game dice. Whoever rolls the fewest movement pips becomes the target. Ankleocats can move up to 8 spaces and always attack adjacent players. Theans move up to 5 spaces and can attack from the 3 spaces away. However, if possible, Theans will always move to be adjacent before attacking. To defeat a monster, you must deal wounds equal to its health. Ankleocats need 1 wound, Theans need 3 wounds. Use black cubes on the numbered monster deck cards to track damage. When a monster is defeated, the player who lands the final blow removes the monster from the board. If that monster had a Tokon Magnet, that player gets the Tokon Magnet. Tracking monsters is important in Magneterra. When a monster appears, the player to your right places it adjacent to you and retrieves its matching monster deck card, placing it in front of whoever triggered the monster. If this is the first monster in the game, the triggering player gets the monster coin. All monsters take their turn together right after the player holding the monster coin. When all monsters are defeated, the monster coin resets and goes to the next player who encounters a new monster. Before a monster takes its turn, you must check, is it in a cooldown period? If the monster just appeared and attacked in the last round, it skips its turn. This is usually a good time to add its health cubes to indicate the cooldown period is over. If it's out of cooldown, it moves and attacks normally. That's everything you need to know about monsters in Magneterra. Now let's move on to do a quick recap of all the ways you can earn XP in the game. Capturing a Tokon Magnet from a pillar, or finding a Tokon Magnet from the search deck or a treasure, earns you 15 XP. Defeating an Angliacat monster is also worth 15 XP. Defeating a Thean monster gets you 30 XP. Defeating a Shadow Warrior cast by an opponent earns you 15 XP. And defeating another player gives you 30 XP. If you defeat 2 or more monsters in a single turn, that will earn you 20 XP bonus. You also gain XP from search cards as indicated on the card. And finally, you can drain XP from an opponent using the Mana Drain spell. All that's left to know about Magneterra is how to win the game. The first player to attract a Tokon Magnet from the tallest pillar wins the game, and that's it. Now you know everything you need to play Magneterra.